Do you love the warmth, character, and quality of vintage decor, but don't want to spend a lot of money? Decorating with vintage finds is one of my passions, and shopping at thrift stores is a great way to discover unique and affordable pieces. Even on a tight budget, you can thrift items with vintage charm that will make your home feel cozy and collected. In today's video, I'll show you my recent thrift store purchases, and I'll share my favorite ideas for decorating with vintage decor. So let's get started.
I'm going to start with my favorite idea and one that I talk about almost every week: repurposing your vintage and thrift store finds. With a little creativity, you can breathe new life into all kinds of old objects, like this vintage oil lamp. I had an idea for replacing the missing globe chimney, but I needed to cut off the knob for it to fit. Then I cut down a dried mushroom from my yard and inserted the stem into the burner hole. Mushrooms get pretty hard when dried out, so I drilled a hole in the center where I could add some faux stems. To make it look more realistic, I hot glued some plastic leaves to the faux vine, and I hot glued some moss to the mushroom. I was going to add a fake butterfly, but then I remembered I had a real one. A few months ago, my dog Edgar found a dead butterfly in the street, and I brought it home. I added a few more small plants and decided to extend the moss all the way to the rim. I thought I was finished, but the next day I found a dead bumblebee in the bay window of my living room. Does anybody else have a window that seems to be a cemetery for every flying insect that enters your home? Then I took the glass cloche from a thrift store anniversary clock and placed it on top. I added a little hot glue on the back side just to ensure the cloche didn't get knocked off. The inspiration for this project were these illustrations of Victorian vivariums. The Victorians put some really interesting things in their homes, but they also put some really strange things in their homes too. I'd love to know what you think of my faux vivarium because I absolutely love it, but I'm afraid some people will think it's weird. But it's not as weird as Victorian taxidermy. Because vintage items have a sense of history, consider grouping things together from a specific era or by a theme to tell a story. I have an English equestrian fox hunting theme in my front living room and a library or dark academia theme in my library. These vintage eyeglasses resting on some books help to tell that story. I couldn't believe I found this brass candle lamp with a sliding shade for less than $6. I think it's the perfect addition to the library. When thrifting, keep an eye out for small, unique objects to complement your existing decor. And think outside the box. Don't just focus on traditional knickknacks like figurines and small vases. I even use vintage salt and pepper shakers as decor. Whether you like books to read or to use as decor, shopping at the thrift store is the way to go. One of my local thrift shops has a monthly special when you can fill an entire bag full of books for just $3. I found 2 Robert Louis Stevenson books that I put on the shelf next to the others by that author. When I get new books, I have to do a little shuffling to make room, and occasionally I'll pull a few of my least favorite ones to donate back to my favorite charity shop. The beauty of used and vintage decor items often lies in their imperfections. These add character and tell a story. Not only was the wiring detached on this marble lamp, but the wrapped cord was hiding a big break. This is why I was able to buy the lamp for just a few dollars. Because I don't need another lamp, I removed the socket and cord. I kept the metal center rod in place to hold the two pieces together, and then I applied E6000 adhesive to the break. I reattached and tightened a nut to the top of the metal rod to hold everything securely in place until the glue had dried. For now, I decided to keep the metal rod in place for extra stability, so I attached an old lamp base turned upside down. The metal rod fit through its center hole, so I could add a nut to hold everything securely in place. I liked it styled with a drooping plant, but I also liked it turned upside down and used as a candle stand. I'm curious, which way do you prefer? Thrifted and vintage pieces, like this old bed warmer, can sometimes feel a bit static. Introducing greenery or colorful flowers can add a touch of life and vibrancy. I just wrapped the stem around the handle, allowing the leaves to hang down. And to complete the vignette, I added 3 rustic wood candle stands and a large brass bird. It really is the greenery that brings this arrangement to life. Often, to incorporate thrift store finds into our home decor, we have to think creatively. Because I like the texture of old brushes, I just hang them from a wall-mounted ladder in my laundry room. I wasn't sure how I would display this copper ladle, but I decided to prop it inside a picture frame on my mantle. Then I added a piece of styrofoam, a bird's nest, and some greenery to draw attention to the ladle. Don't shy away from thrifting and combining different materials and metal finishes. This can create a layered and visually interesting look. I scored this chippy wood corbel and thought it would add interest between the brass vase and the copper ladle on the mantle. And then I even added an iron bird to the mix. To achieve a similar effect on the opposite end of the mantle, I added a small gold mirror next to the wood candelabra, and then I added a white ceramic bird that actually came inside a thrifted bird cage. To mix up the materials on the coffee table, I added brass candlesticks, cloth-covered books, a bundle of wood spindles, a ceramic pot with flowers, and a small glass compote. By mixing various materials and textures, you can create a sense of depth and layering on your coffee table. Vintage ephemera is one of the most affordable items you can buy at thrift stores. This deck of pinochle cards was only 50 cents. I also thrifted a small frame for $3, and the plain card was a perfect fit. I think this looks adorable, and I have 47 more, so I'll be adding one of these cards to all of the orders from my store until I run out. Initially, I thought these were playing cards as well, but then I was pleased to discover that they're vintage book plates. Now I just need someone to borrow a book so I can actually use one. Practical kitchen items are also often very inexpensive and can be integrated into your existing decor for amazing results. This red transferware plate had a beautiful design, so I made room for it in a small hutch in my front living room. I like the plate much better here than the hummingbird picture, don't you? I've always been drawn to vintage wood mashers, but I just recently came across these pestle type mashers, and I knew they would look fantastic in my tin wall basket. But they were so heavy. I had to add a rock to the opposite side to balance out the weight. Repeating a design element like a floral pattern or a geometric shape can add dimension and cohesion to your space. Recently, I've been adding fruit still lifes to my kitchen. So when I saw this tray for just $2, I couldn't resist. I decided to take down the toile tray and move the oil painting over and put the new tray next to the lamp. I use heavy-duty Velcro strips, which are great, especially if you like to rearrange wall decor as often as I do. Don't you just love the artwork on this tray? I also thrifted a fruit and floral bouquet, which I thought would be perfect next to one of the oil paintings. I just cut off any flowers or berries that look raggedy. I also used some florist tape to attach a peach-colored hydrangea to pick up on the oranges in the painting. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you already know that I've been collecting blue and white china and chinoiserie for several years. I'm especially fond of Delftware from Holland. Can you believe I snagged these salt and pepper shakers for only $3? My old set was cute, but the Delft shakers are perfection, at least for me. I had never seen a blue and white flask before, so for $2, I'm adding it to my collection. Don't pass by large glass jars at the thrift store. They're so versatile, and they can turn anything into a visually interesting collection. I've used them to contain shells, game pieces, vacation mementos, and even my son's chapstick collection. But I'm filling this one with old silverware. Items always seem more attractive and interesting inside a glass jar. Since thrifting is so affordable, you can have fun mixing and matching and experimenting with color combinations. I picked up this floral plant pot primarily because I thought the colorful flowers would look great next to the light green terrarium I upcycled in last week's video. And it's a perfect vessel for this plant that's still in its plastic pot. In that $3 bag of books, I also selected several old guidepost books. Each one is a different color, and I thought they would look really pretty on my bedroom bookcase shelves. And they're perfect for bedtime reading. When thrifting, keep an eye out for charming vintage containers that can double as functional storage. This little sewing box would be perfect for holding jewelry or small items in the bathroom. I'm using it on the fireplace mantle in my bedroom to corral small necessities and the fireplace remote control. I'm a sucker for vintage baskets and use them to hold things like blankets, books and magazines, plants, and even pet toys. This vintage basket is the perfect size to hold magazines in my bedroom. Do you have an empty corner somewhere in your home? Well, on only one trip to the thrift store, you can find all the components you need to turn that corner into a reading nook. I started with this vintage cane barrel chair with some of the most grandma chic upholstery I've ever seen. I gave it a good cleaning and then took it up to our bedroom. I also purchased this metal plant stand that I'm going to use as a small side table. The top of the plant stand was small and I wanted to add a lamp, so I decided to put a round cutting board on top to create more surface area. Despite the cut marks, I only lightly sanded the top because I didn't want to remove the design. Then I brushed on a thick coat of antiquing wax, and after a minute or two, I wiped off the excess. I just sat the cutting board on the stand. It was quite stable. And then I added the vintage lamp with the doily shade that I upcycled in last week's video. Now the only thing that was missing was reading material, and I just happened to have a wicker basket full of magazines. To create a home that is truly a reflection of you, be sure to choose pieces that reflect your personal style and interests. Although our dog Edgar is only half Cocker Spaniel, this dog print really spoke to me. The glass was broken, so I also thrifted another frame with the same size glass. A new piece of glass would certainly have cost more than $4. I just removed the dog print from its frame. I threw away the broken glass but kept the wood frame. I liked the larger frame on the second picture better, so I took the backing off of that frame and added in the dog print. I polished the wood with some feed-in wax and then hung the dog print over the bench in the back entryway. A year ago, I probably wouldn't have bought this dog print, but now it reflects the changes that have occurred in our household. If you found some inspiration in today's video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up or leave me a comment. And my final tip today is to just follow your gut and have an open mind on how a thrifted piece might be used in your home. Because if you love it, you'll always find a place for it. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you next week.